do you care either way, Dan? Should fans care either way? Like, to me, the last thing I care about is what he calls whatever the building of a franchise up. Like, I don't need it to be termed anything. The fans aren't stupid. The fans know that this team has a lot of work to be done. So if you want to call it a build up, you want to call it a fixer up, you want to call it a rebuild, who the hell cares?
Correct. I don't care what the label is. For some reason, there is a small pocket of the fan base that gets really worked up when they hear the term rebuild, because they think, oh man, 2022 is going to be a waste of my time. Well, guess what? So was 2019, 2020, and 2021 when you won 8 and 6 games, right? Like, so this is just the reality that you're living in, and this is part of the process of trying to get it back on the right track. And now, obviously, you go into a pivotal part of your offseason with a GM who's promising to build this team up through the draft. You better have success in the draft, right? And so you go into the weekend with 6 picks. I'd be stunned if their draft class wasn't bigger than 6. It seems from all indications of the way Ryan's talked over the last few months and again today, he's going to be seeking every opportunity to find windows to trade back, add picks, and be able to address more of those needs with a draft class that's pretty deep this year.
Dan, I have appreciated his steady and calm and deliberate approach. How do you read what he has done? Are you surprised that he has been as patient as he has to this point, not adding a ton of stuff? And what do you expect him to do when this draft begins?
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised. I think that's kind of his demeanor and his very level-headed approach to this thing. I think Ryan Pace started out on that same path, right, for the first couple of years and understood what he inherited and what they had to do. And so we look back on the Ryan Pace era with obviously some jaded perspective, but when you look at the early stages of it, there weren't a lot of major missteps early. It wasn't until we got to 2017 and there was the miscalculation on Mitch, and we can go through the laundry list of other things that we've gone over 1,000 times. For Ryan this weekend, I think so much of this has to be about figuring out ways to, as you mentioned earlier, Tommy, get Justin help. And I think you haven't done enough at the receiver position to this point, right? And now you've got an opportunity with a draft that's pretty deep at that position to do something. And I'd be stunned if they didn't come out of Friday night with one of the receivers in this class. Doesn't necessarily have to be at 39, doesn't necessarily have to be at 48, but you would hope it's before 71, right? So if there's opportunities to move around and figure some things out and get one of these guys that's a legitimate day 2 prospect, I think you would want to do that for the sake of Justin and his development.
Boys, I want to throw this at the two of you because, I've been passionate about this, about the wide receiver conversation, that especially hearing that this is a deep wide receiver draft and knowing what the NFL has become here in the last 4 or 5 years, where receivers are picked. I echo what you said, Dan. I want them to trade back. I don't want them to trade any draft capital for one of these big boom wide receivers. I want to list all these guys. I did the research today because I've done some here and there, and I go, well, Devontae Adams is a 2nd-round pick, but I haven't put all of this to pen to paper. Devontae Adams, 53rd overall pick. Deebo Samuel, 36th overall pick. Cooper Kupp, 69th overall pick.
Nice.
A.J. Brown, 51st overall pick. A-Rob, 61st overall pick. Tyreek Hill, 165. Stephon Diggs, 146. Keenan Allen, 76th. Chris Godwin, 84th. Terry McLaurin, 76th. Deontay Johnson, 66. Hunter Renfrow, 149. This is a group of 1 or 2s, some of the best receivers in all the league that were found right in the sweet spot on where the Bears are drafting. The answer is not to overpay and to give up more capital for an established wide receiver. The job for Ryan Poles is to draft the next one of these guys.
The Bears' leading receiver last year, 173, Darnell Mooney, right? So it's another evidence that you can find these guys in days 2 and day 3. I'm a little mad at you, Silvy, because you did all that research. I'm literally staring at a pad on my cubicle at Hallis Hall that has all of these draft numbers written down. We could have saved ourselves some time and shared these draft positions of these guys, because for something I'm writing for tomorrow, we've had 13 receivers last year, 2021, that had at least 1,100 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. 9 of them drafted after the first round, 8 taken outside the top 50. A lot of those guys you named were on that list. And so, it is an indicator that you don't have to be overly aggressive at that position. And even better for the Bears, we've seen in recent years that guys are ready to make an instant impact when you draft them in rounds 2, 3, 4, 5. The guys can come in and in their first, second, or third year be major contributors to your offense. And so that should be something that is truly driving Ryan Poles as well.
Remember when they always used to say draft a quarterback every year, and you only play one quarterback, but yet they have such high value. Wide receivers are growing in value. Even though the supply is high in these drafts, the established ones are still getting a ton of money, and they're getting a lot in a trade. So if I'm Ryan Poles, not only do I need them, I keep drafting multiple of these guys, because then you just replace the next one because they're so pricey with the salary cap, and you can get a lot for an established one.
Well, look, here's the deal. Ryan Pace had that philosophy for a little bit. They had Anthony Miller, right? They went out and got Anthony Miller.
But they traded up for him, didn't they? Like they borrowed from, again, they didn't value pick. They, again, had to go get that guy, and again, he turned into a bust.
Took Javon Wims in the same draft. The following year, they go best player available when they didn't think they had a receiver need, and they took Riley Ridley, who became a bust as well. And so it all comes down to you have to be right. You can have all these different draft philosophies. If you get a guy that can't play, you get a guy that can't play no matter what your philosophy is. And that, if Anthony Miller turned into what they thought he was going to become, then we say, God, what a move to go up and get him. He didn't become that, so we say what a dumb move that was. You just got to find guys that can play. And to your point, they can be found in all shapes and sizes and all different areas of the draft board, so why not take multiple swings? That's why I wouldn't be surprised if they add draft capital this weekend and wind up with multiple receivers in this draft class.
They're very focused on this offensive line as well, aren't they, Dan? I know they just signed another tackle. What can you tell us about him, and where do you see them in terms of their priority list with regard to fixing this O-line?
Yeah, look, they brought in Julian Davenport, who's been a journeyman. I think this is his fourth team now, was with Indy last year, and is a guy that can figure in your rotation, be a swing tackle for you. I think that Ryan Poles is trying to get a group up front that he feels has a nastier edge than has been here in the past. Today was the second or third time that he has referenced Lucas Patrick, the center signing that he made last month, as a guy who's been a tone setter. And I think that there's something as a former offensive lineman that Poles truly appreciates about some of these guys that have that nasty edge to them, right? We talk in this town all the time about a guy like Olin Kreutz, who was able to set a tone not only for the offensive line but in that locker room, and I think that's what Ryan Poles is after. And so if they look to the draft this weekend to add some of those guys, look for that trait to be something that they highlight repeatedly, is these guys that not only can play but play with that edge that can help set a tone for your offense and take it down that route. Again, two picks in the second round will give them an opportunity potentially to address two needs. You could go receiver and offensive tackle on Friday night and feel pretty good about where you're heading into Saturday. And so that's going to be another position to obviously keep an eye on. Corner, another one that I think they need to address at some point here this weekend.